Hello everyone, welcome to Sports Insider. I am Dan Labbe, joined by Chris Fedor, and we have a packed show as always for you today. We're going to try and get Mary Kay Cabot on here to talk Browns, and then we're going to talk Cavaliers with Chris Haynes, wrapping up back-to-back preseason games with a win over the Pacers last night. And then we'll wrap things up by talking a little baseball with Paul Hoynes, Major League Baseball free agency, of course the playoffs, one World Series team, Kansas City. It looks like San Francisco on their way as well to the World Series, so we'll talk about all that with Paul Hoynes. Chris, the Browns taking on the Jaguars. They have a real opportunity in front of them. They're 3-2 right now. They've got 3 winnable games. Think about this. This team could be 6-2 headed to Cincinnati.
And there's no reason that they shouldn't be. You're
Yeah.
talking about 3 teams that you play right in a row with a combined record of 1-16. The Jaguars haven't won a game, and look, they got close last week against the Tennessee Titans, and they played the Steelers tough 2 weeks ago. But this is a game that the Browns should win. The Browns should dominate this game because they have the better quarterback, they have the better offensive line, they have the better everything. If you go matchup by matchup, position by position, Dan, the Browns have the better everything. And it's a game that in the past, the Browns haven't always played their best.
You mean like last year?
Yes, like last year, like the year before, like the year before. But I feel like this team turned a corner last week with the impressive win against the Steelers, and I feel like that showed that these Cleveland Browns are different.
Yeah, and you look at Jacksonville, Chris, there's nothing that they do particularly well.
Right.
I mean, maybe their defensive line is okay. I don't know. They let Charlie Whitehurst throw for 233 yards against them. Blake Bortles is putting up big numbers, but again, you actually watch him play, you're not really convinced about this guy. There's nothing that Jacksonville does that scares you. Because I went back, I watched some of their games, and I was trying to come up with some reason that the Browns would lose this game, and I couldn't find it. We know in the past that doesn't matter.
Right.
The Browns can always find a way to lose games. But if this team really is different, and it appears they are, this is a game that they should go on the road and be able to impose their will.
Dan, if the Browns were coming off that close win against the Tennessee Titans, I would say, all right, maybe Jacksonville's offense could do a little bit of something against the Browns' defense. But the Browns' defense last week showed up in a big way, and that was against Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. You're talking about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, all in the top 10 at their position this year. If the Browns' defense can hold that Steelers' offense to essentially 3 points in the game, I feel like Jacksonville is going to have a real hard time moving the ball against this Browns team.
And you're talking about guys like Denard Robinson getting carries.
Storm
Johnson getting carries. This is not a team that scares you. Even Cecil Shorts, on the outside at receiver, he made a big mistake against Tennessee, fumbled the football. He hasn't been as reliable for them as you would hope. So just not a lot of weapons on this Jacksonville team. All right, let's go ahead and bring in our Browns beat reporter to talk about the Jaguars and more. Mary Kay Cabot joins us. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Let's start with this Brian Hoyer situation, because it's been all about Brian Hoyer contract talk, and then there was that report that he didn't want to be here if Johnny Manziel was here. He came out and said that's not true. But just all in all, with this Brian Hoyer contract situation, are both sides approaching this the right way, waiting?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it probably would behoove the Browns to try to come to the table and see if they can get anything worked out before the end of the season. I think that would probably be, a smart thing for them to do, because the price tag keeps going up. So if they would like to get Brian wrapped up to a long-term lucrative deal, then, they might want to do that sooner than later. If he continues to win, if he takes them to the playoffs, they're going to be looking at a humongous contract. The thing that they have going for them right now is that if they offer him a nice signing bonus and a nice yearly average now, he has protection in the event he gets injured again. So that's the incentive for him to want to do something now. My guess is that there will be some kind of a conversation before the season ends. The longer this goes, it's in Brian's best interest probably to win more games and wait it out and see if he can kind of hit the jackpot with either the Browns or someone else at the end of the year. Now, he does want to be here, where he wants to finish his career. I do think there is something to be said. It is a factor that Johnny Manziel is here. Now, does that mean that Brian doesn't want to sign a long-term contract if Johnny's here? No, he's said that is absolutely untrue, and he tells the truth. So if that's not the case, then that's not the case. However, the way that that does factor in is that the Browns do have to decide. I mean, if you're going to give Brian $12 million a year for the next 5 years, you're basically saying Johnny Manziel is not our quarterback of the future. And I don't know if they're prepared to say that yet. That's the big question right now.
Mary Kay, taking Johnny Manziel out of it for a minute, do the Browns have questions still about Brian Hoyer's ability, or do you feel like they've gotten the answers that they needed to get in the first 5 games?
Well, we just talked to Kyle Shanahan about him on Friday. And anytime we ask him about those kinds of things, about upside, about potential, he always says, we will know at the end of the year. And you know what? I think that's a realistic approach because you do have to stand the test of time. You do have to work against a different set of defenses to make sure that that what you're seeing will hold up over all different qualities of defenses and all different kinds of teams. So, I do think that they are still sort of in, I think his quote was, it's still a mystery what he is. It's a mystery. So, I do think that they want to check it out over the next few games. Now, when you look at the next 3 games, though, you really should be able to win these games. They're a combined 1-16. So I don't even know after these 3 games if you're going to have the full picture of what you need.
Mary Kay, I continue to think that this is a very difficult and yet fascinating conversation because on one hand, I understand Brian Hoyer's not working with the greatest talent at wide receiver. He's doing it with Miles Austin, Andrew Hawkins, Taylor Gabriel. But I think there are other things in play here that are helping Brian. You talk about the running game. It's been one of the best in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan's been one of the best play callers in the NFL, helping Brian, getting him in spots where he can succeed. And Brian's also playing behind the best offensive line in the league at this moment. Now, maybe that changes because Alex Mack went down. But, is it fair to say that there are a lot of factors that are helping Brian succeed the way that he has in the first 5?
You know what, Chris? I do think that you're exactly right about that. And I think that, you're very smart to look at all of those things. And that's all of those things that the Browns are looking at as well. Because they build an offense from the ground up, and they don't build it just around a premier quarterback. That is not the philosophy of this football team. The philosophy of Mike Pettin and Ray Farmer, and maybe Kyle Shanahan too, to a certain extent, is to build a really solid, well-rounded offense so that you don't need the quarterback necessarily to be a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady. That you can plug in a good quarterback and you can win with him. So that's the question that's going on here. Do they feel like Phil Savage used to say, this is such a good cockpit that you can put, Johnny Manziel back there behind this offensive line and with that running game and those skill positions, and that he could have success, or that you could put someone else in there and that they can also have success. So I think those are all things that they're going to look at over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 games.
Mary Kay, speaking of Johnny Manziel, I kind of keep thinking, if we kind of switched roles, if he were the quarterback for this team and if he were doing exactly what Brian Hoyer was doing, what would people be saying about him? Would people basically be ready to build a statue of him outside of First Energy Stadium?
Oh, absolutely, 100%, because he comes with that, that sort of cachet, that reputation of, he's all that. I think people with Brian are still in, people are jumping on the bandwagon, but I still think that there is a sense of, let's continue to see so that we can really believe that what we're seeing is real. And but you're right. If Johnny was doing these kind of things right now, I think, anything that Johnny does, is obviously way, way, way overblown. But yeah, so again, I think we'll know a lot more, not just after these 3 games, because I do think there's a very good chance that they're going to win them all. I really think they can win them all. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you've got the whole Alex Mack factor going on right now, and it doesn't help that you don't have your Pro Bowl center. And the team that they're about to face, I believe they're second in the NFL right now with 19 sacks.
Right.
So they're going to have to see if Johnny's going to, if Brian's going to hold up and, if he's going to get middle pressure. Middle pressure is very difficult to deal with. And, again, John Greco, he filled in admirably last week, and he's a very good guard. But they're going to be looking to run it up the gut, to rush up the gut this week. And they're going to try to exploit a makeshift line that had to switch 2 positions out this week. And this is a very good stacking. We'll have to see how this goes.
Mary Kay, in the first 4 games, there were a lot of reasons to be critical of the defense. It was not playing up to the standards. Browns made some changes, personnel changes, also schematic changes, and they basically held the Steelers, an explosive offense, to 3 points in 4 quarters. Now, it was 10, but it was essentially 3. So is that a sign of things to come? Did the Browns figure things out after Week 4 against Tennessee defensively?
Yeah, I think they did. I think they've corrected some things. I think they simplified some things is what they did more so than anything. They were trying to probably run too much of the defensive game plan and Pettin kind of joke, hey, you know what, you could fit our calls on the back of a calling card or a business card, cocktail napkin or something like that. And that's what you saw. You saw guys not having to think as much in this new scheme and just to go out and play some football. And I think you'll continue to see more of that. Now, of course, they're going to try to do everything they can to disrupt Blake Bortles. That's what you do with a rookie quarterback. You give him multiple looks. You give him, try to disrupt him, get him off his mark, and do the best you can that way. So they don't want to go too simple this week, but nonetheless, it won't be a super complicated scheme.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, joining us. Thanks for taking the time out, Mary Kay.
Thanks, guys.
And Chris, you talk about that defensive performance. I think it's one of the most basic of things. I thought it was their best tackling game on Sunday. And I mean, that really, when you make tackles, your defense looks a lot better.
I completely agree. And I don't know if it was the personnel changes, but Ishmaeli Kitchen was out there making plays. And I thought John Hughes played a whale of a football game, Dan. He was stopping the run effectively. He was putting pressure on Big Ben. He was getting his hands up in the passing lanes. I thought John Hughes was huge.
All right, let's go ahead and switch gears and talk Cavaliers. We'll bring in our Cavaliers beat reporter, Chris Haynes, joining us on Sports Insider. Chris, welcome aboard.
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. The Cavs, of course, playing very well in this preseason. Now 4-0, win over the Pacers last night. What did you see last night that stood out to you?
Well, definitely, I think you have to mention LeBron James, finally getting out of that mini funk he was in. I think a lot had to do with just the atmosphere. That crowd last night, they were stoked. They were pumped. The minute they got word that the Cavaliers were coming there for an exhibition match, they were excited ever since. And I think LeBron James felt that. He felt that vibe, and he went out there and he played it. He played his best game this preseason. So definitely, his play. But another guy, man, A.J. Price, man. I think it's. I think it's without saying that he's definitely going to make this squad. Now I'm starting to think that, man, Delly's going to have he's going to have some competition for that backup point guard spot. Because I think A.J. Price is a much better shooter than Dellavedova, and I do think he's a better passer as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It may be a case this season where Coach Blatt will have to just go with who's ever playing good at that time from a game-to-game basis. But A.J. Price, man, that guy, he's really been playing some awesome ball the last couple of games.
Chris, I agree with you on A.J. Price, and I think the Cavs, given the injury history of Kyrie, he's never played a full season, might have to carry 3 point guards. However, if Ray Allen does come to the Cavs, does that change what the Cavs do on the roster with 3 point guards?
No, I don't think so. You need 3 point guards in on team nowadays. I think that's mandatory. I don't think Ray Allen changes that dynamic at all. Ray Allen will be that primary backup shoot guard role. They really don't have a pure 2 right now, aside from Deion Waiters. So I don't think Ray Allen has much to do at all with A.J. Price. And you look at A.J. Price; he's a veteran in this league. He's somebody that You know, he played a couple of years with the Pacers. He knows how to play on winning teams. And so I think down the road, he may be even more valuable than Dellavedova, even though I think Dellavedova has more upside at this point than A.J. I think A.J. right now is just equipped to handle the adversity and the scrutiny that this team is going to, face this coming up season. So, I don't think Ray Allen has anything to do with A.J. Price. And like I said, I still think A.J. is pretty much a lock for this team, regardless if Ray Allen comes or not.
So let's ask about Ray Allen. When can Cavaliers fans expect a decision from him?
I spoke with Ray Allen's people a couple days ago, man. It's the same story. Ray hasn't made up his mind, and Ray could possibly come mid-season. He can come in December, or he can not play at all. But definitely, I hear that he is leaning towards playing this year. That's going to be the case. But, is it going to be in January? Is it going to be after the All-Star break? Who knows? But Cavaliers for sure have a real legitimate shot of landing him, man. He's definitely intrigued with the possibilities. But Ray Allen's a smart guy. He wants to look at how some of these teams that's courting him, how they're playing, how they're connecting, how they gel with the coach and whatnot. So, he's going to be, he has his options. He's a great player, future Hall of Fame player. He wants to make sure he finishes strong and doesn't want to change his legacy by just jumping on any team. He wants to make sure the chemistry and dynamic is there for him.
Chris, there aren't too many teams in the Eastern Conference that have the kind of front line that Indiana does with David West and Roy Hibbert. Heck, there aren't too many teams in the NBA that have that kind of front line. I was interested to see last night how Tristan Thompson, an undersized power forward who's playing some center this year for the Cavs, was going to handle himself. Chris, I thought he played really, really well against that front line.
No, he did. And don't forget Louis Stoller down on that front court.
Yeah, that's right.
Too, man. That team, with the loss of Paul George for the year and Lance Stevenson, the free agency, the Pacers have always been a team known for their rugged style. But now they're going to have to rely much more heavily on that because, that's going to be their staple. They're going to be tough. They're going to be bruisers, and they got the guys to do it. And so last night was a test, and Kevin Love, he was on the opposite end of that. Got hit in the neck a couple times, and and this is just the preseason, guys. So, Tristan Thompson held his own. He bulked up over the summer. He got more cut, got more rip, so he'll be able to be more equipped to handle some of the load at playing center. With that being said, the front court of the Cavs right now, they are banged up. This is the preseason. Barry's out banged his knee a couple games ago. Kevin Love banged his knee. Now he's having some neck issues. Tristan Thompson is coming off of a shoulder injury. I talked to him last night. He said he hurt it doing some pull-ups. So while that wasn't doing an actual basketball game or practice.
I'm sorry, what? He hurt it doing pull-ups?
Pull up. Hey, man, when you cut and when you weigh about 260, I think Tristan Thompson weighs, hey, it has to be tough just for pulling yourself up. So, hey, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because, when I do pull-ups, I'm only pulling up 185. So it ain't 260. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. He was working out. Come on, Chris. I know Chris had to say something negative.
I pulled myself up one time, but it's only about 150 that I'm pulling up there, Chris.
there you go, man. But I was just saying, their front court is banged up right now. I want to see how they'll be able to hold up throughout the course of the season because they're going to be important if this team expects to do anything special this year.
I don't think I've done a pull-up since elementary school.
Man, that's like a dude missing a game because his neck was sore after a long flight to Brazil. Slept funny.
Chris, going back to that physicality, do you expect to see that from teams this year? Is that going to be the formula, at least early on, try and test the Cavaliers physically?
Yes, that is the formula because look at Kevin Love. He's a double-double guy. He, averaged 20 points, won the leading rebounds in the league year after year. But his toughness has always been in question. And then you got Tristan Thompson, who's going to play the bulk of his minutes at the center spot. So automatically, teams are going to try to go at him. So, yeah, you definitely have the Cavs definitely have that to face this season with teams. Because you look on the perimeter, men are solid. You talk about Kyrie Irving, Deion Waiters, LeBron James. That's solid right there. Where's the weakness? and the weakness is going to have to be in the interior. And I think teams are going to go at them and play rough and try to see what Kevin Love and try to see what Tristan is made of. And Anderson Varejao, you know, he's been a solid player throughout his NBA career. But I don't think toughness ever defined him. You know, even when I was in Portland over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, I didn't really think of him as just being a tough player. But he was always somebody that does the dirty work. But, you know, those are going to be, and then Brendan Haywood, how many minutes can he play? He's considered, you know, to be a fragile player right now, trying to work himself into shape. So their toughness is going to be in question, and it's going to be up to those guys in the front court to step up to the challenge and show that, hey, we can match that physicality.
All right, Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter, joining us here on Sports Insider. Thanks for the time, Chris.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
All right, I think that's an interesting point about the physicality. I think that's maybe the one area where teams are going to try to attack the Cavaliers early. And if they get into these games where maybe the officials let it get physical, those could be the games that cause the Cavaliers problems.
If you remember last night, the first couple of plays for Indiana offensively, what did they do? They went right into the post, right to David West. They attacked Kevin Love. By the way, when it comes to pull-ups, do you do like this way and then pull up, or
well,
do
see,
you
there's
do like
the chin up,
right,
and then there's the pull up.
Which
I gotta
one's
do the hands facing towards me. I think I don't know
that
which
the
is which
pull-up?
though. I think the chin up is this one.
I don't know.
I can't do them.
That's
very well,
that's a bizarre way to hurt yourself, man.
It really is.
It's like Marty Cordova. I can't play because I got burned in the tanning bed. Remember that?
I do. That was fantastic. And another guy who remembers that is the person joining us right now, Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, we got to start with this. What's the weirdest baseball injury that you can think of? Is it the tanning bed and Marty Cordova?
That ranks right up there. Unfortunately, he wasn't with us. He wasn't with the Indians then. He was with the Orioles, I'm
Right.
pretty sure. But he was sidelined for a few days. I remember there was a pitcher named Bud Anderson, just when I first started covering. And it was in Tucson in spring training. And he was walking from the big league fields to the minor league fields. And there was barbed wire on top of the fence.
Oh my
And nobody said hello to him. He picked up his hand to wave back to him and cut his hand, his pitching hand, and he didn't make the club because of it.
Oh. Remember the dude who injured himself playing the video game Guitar Hero? Oh, sorry, Skip, can't play
right.
today. Was playing some
the
Guitar
Detroit-
Hero and hurt the
Detroit
finger.
closer, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, Lindsay, let's talk a little playoff baseball. The Royals are in the World Series. I mean, it's a great story. I don't know how Indians fans feel about it, but here are the Kansas City Royals playing in the World Series. Just what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is a great story. First time since 1985. And I think Indians fans should feel pretty good about that because, if you look at the season series between the two teams, I think Kansas City won it 10-9. So, that's that's about as close as you can get. And, most of those games were really, kind of, a push, really. They were that close. So, at least that shows you the Indians are headed in the right direction. But with the Royals, it just looks like – I remember what David Justice, the old Indians outfielder, telling me once. The postseason is all about what team gets hot at the right time. And, geez, I mean, the Royals just look like that team right now. Everything you see them do is what teams do during the season when they're on a hot streak. They get the blue pit, they get the home run late, they get the big out when they need it, and the good defensive play, and they're just on a roll right now. It's really fun to watch.
Hoynesy, what has to happen for the Indians this offseason for them to get to the level of the Kansas City Royals?
Well, like I said, I don't think there's that much separation. Obviously, there's a great bullpen, with Kansas City, but the Indians' bullpen isn't that far behind. They're not as established in those roles. When I'm saying they don't have they don't have Shaw, Wade Davis. I don't know. Is that the eighth inning guy? Seventh, Cody Allen really isn't that closer, isn't that 40-save closer that Allen is right now. And, so, and in the seventh inning with Kelvin Herrera, they've got a couple guys that can fill that role. But the bullpen is, that's not the problem. And really, I think the Indians had a better offense than the Royals. The Royals have just started scoring, very opportunistically in the postseason. They started hitting the ball out of the park, and they win the last 2 games 2-1. So I mean, it's not like they're not going to cover off the ball, but I think obviously the Indians have to get better offensively.
Hoynesy, when you look back at this Indian season, you see what the Royals have done. You see how close the Indians came to still getting into the playoffs. Is the ultimate regret for this team those defensive issues, especially early in the year, that cost them games?
I think that is. That's part of it. I don't think you can really focus on one thing. The thing that sticks out in my mind is you play 162 games, and in half of those games they scored 3 or fewer runs. And, you don't win games when you do that. And, that's why I think the emphasis this offseason should be on the offense.
Hoynesy, when it comes to that, free agency, Victor Martinez has kind of alluded to the fact that he's going to give the Detroit Tigers the first chance at him in free agency. I don't know about you, Bud, but I'm tired of going after these old dudes. They went after old dude Nick Swisher, and it's turned out to not work out very well. Michael Bourne, he wasn't old at the time, but he was approaching that age. Is there one of these young, up-and-coming guys that maybe they can go after instead of settling for an older Victor Martinez or an older this guy or that guy?
Well, I think, there's, the free agent market is, it's not real deep. I think, like a guy like Melky Cabrera is an interesting guy to me. I know he's a left fielder. He's got the PED thing in his past.
Yeah.
He's maybe 30, so he's not that old, but do you do that? I don't know. A guy like Mike Morse, his injury past, but he's had a decent year for the Giants this year. He's got big time power, right-handed hitter. He could play first base, he could DH. He could play left field, but you have to, then, you're not going to move Brantley. So, it's going to be really an interesting offseason to see just what steps they take to improve the ball club. Do they go all in? And I agree with you. I think, you can't go after Victor. Victor's 35 years old. He's going to, Detroit is going to give him whatever he wants. They need him. They need him more than anybody else needs him, in my mind. They need him to protect Cabrera. So they're gonna go all out, and it's insane to think Victor at 35, he'll play at 36 next year. Is going to have the same kind of year, 36, 37, 38, 39. That just doesn't happen. Not in the the post steroid era, anyways. And so I think you're probably asking for trouble if you go after Martinez and give him anything more than a 2-year deal.
Hoynesy, is part of the thing with Victor Martinez, too, that, let's be honest, Nick Swisher is going to be back here next year. There's not really a position for him. He's probably going to end up as the DH. So does that sort of impact whether they'd go after Victor as well?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think. No one even knows. The Indians don't know what Swisher can do. So there's no way they can trade him right now. You're going to have to wait until you get, you're going to have to wait through spring training and probably through April and half of May before, you get an indication and the 29 other teams get an indication of what he can do.
All right, Paul, before we let you go, the Giants on the verge of clinching the National League. What's your World Series pick?
Excuse me. I got a cold.
Thought you were choked up thinking about Nick Swisher.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
No, I'm sticking with the Royals.
All right.
What they've won 8 straight, 9, so I'm going to go with them.
All right, picking the Royals. Hoynesy, feel better.
Thank you.
Tea and honey, buddy. Tea and honey.
Paul Hoynes joining us. Thanks a lot, Hoynesy. And our thanks as well to Chris Haynes, Mary Kay Cabot as well. That'll do it for another Sports Insider. He's Chris Fedor. I'm Dan Labbe.